The investiture ceremony of the 26th Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the state of Louisiana.
And is so ordered.
Thank you, Your Honor.
As we enter this new year, which I believe will be better in many, many ways than 2020, I do want to say that I'm very pleased to be invited here to speak at this investiture ceremony. I want to thank the Chief Justice, John Weimer, for the invitation, but also Penny and the family for all that you have done for many years to sacrifice while he has served the public so well. I also want to thank Chief Justice Johnson for her many years of public service to the people of Louisiana. I was outside in, I think it was 2013, at her investiture ceremony. And obviously her service as Chief Justice was historic. And on behalf of the people of Louisiana, I certainly want to wish her well and Godspeed. I also want to welcome our two newest members of the court, Justice Jay McCollum and Justice Piper Griffin. There's never been a more challenging time to be a public servant than right now. And I want to thank you all, everybody here who's a public servant, for offering themselves for service. And thank you for your willingness to step forward on behalf of the people of Louisiana. It is greatly appreciated, and I'm confident that Justice McCollum, Justice Griffin, you're going to serve very well, with wisdom and with compassion. It is my honor to be here in this court today. You know, while few in the public are really aware of all the contributions that are made by the justices of the Supreme Court and all the work that they do by them and by their staff, everybody here certainly knows how critically important the functioning of this court is to the people of Louisiana. And I think after yesterday, it is more important than ever that we understand how important it is to have an orderly and peaceful transfer of power. And that is one of the things that's being done here today. And so I thank all of you for coming out to be part of this historic occasion. You know, this is a grand and historic building, and every time, not just that I'm in it, I drive by this building, I am awestruck. It is absolutely beautiful. And this courtroom is ornate, it's majestic, and it inspires confidence in us. But the court isn't this building and it isn't this room, it's the justices who serve. And I am confident that we couldn't have a better Chief Justice than John Weimer. He and all the justices understand that Lady Justice is blindfolded and the scales are balanced for a reason. Because nobody who's a party to any action before this court should be disadvantaged by anything other than the facts and the law. Not who they are, not what they look like, not where they come from, not the money that they have or their stature in society. John Weimer is well deserving of this position. In his invitation to me to speak today, he asked me not to eulogize him. I am not going to do that. I did want to apologize, however, because Donna was invited to be here today, and she asked me to apologize for everyone for her absence. But she very much treasures friendship that we have with the Chief Justice as well. I do want to acknowledge that John Weimer is becoming chief at a historic time. And it's a very difficult time. You can just look around this room. It's not filled to capacity, not because he doesn't have enough family, as Dan reminded us, not because there aren't enough people interested in this ceremony. It happens to be because we're in the midst of a global pandemic. And so these are very difficult times. They're historic times. You know, I know that the Chief Justice hails from up the bayou. I'm certain that the good people of Lafourche Parish would have been here en masse had they been able to attend as their native son ascends to this position. And I can confirm to the Chief Justice that you are going to be the biggest thing in Thibodaux until a Heisman Trophy is awarded to one of your young people.
Well, they just put in a roundabout, Governor, and I think that's the most exciting thing that's happened there in a long time.
I understand. We are in the ravages of a pandemic, and the truth is, it's worse now here and around the country than it has been at any point up to now. This is a critical time in our response. We meet here today to celebrate this tradition, but to celebrate it differently, as so many other events have been celebrated differently over the last 10 months. And I know that while this ceremony may look different than what he had hoped for, I will tell you that it's being done in the right way and that John Weimer is the right person to lead this court in these challenging times. I have no doubt that he will serve honorably, upholding the law of the land, and he understands that Lady Justice is blindfolded. I also pray that you'll never lose the sense of wonder that you feel upon walking into this courtroom because of its grandeur. And it is a reminder, I think, of the grand responsibility that you and all of the justices have. Unfortunately, and as the Chief Justice is aware, I won't be able to stay for the full ceremony. I do have a conference call with President-elect Biden's COVID response team, and they're looking for some specific information relative to various states right now. And so I'm going to be excusing myself shortly, and so I wanted to apologize to that. But I did want to thank once again the Chief Justice, the Associate Justices for the opportunity to speak here today. I look forward to working with you all for the remainder of my time as governor of this great state. And the state of Louisiana is a great state. I'm inspired by the people of our state, the goodness, the decency of our people. And they deserve to be well and ably served by folks such as those before you today on this court. So I thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I will be praying for each and every one of you, and I would ask that you pray for me and for our country and for our state, so that together we will get through this pandemic, we will get back to a sense of normalcy, and we will do it sooner than later and with the least loss of life possible. So thank you all very much, and God bless.
I'd like to remind Chief Justice Burnett Johnson of what a pleasure it was to have her some 5 years ago swearing us in. And what an honor, Justice Weimer, Chief, to give me an opportunity to speak on this historical occasion. You know, every generation of Louisianians from the beginning has had to answer for itself the question, how should we live? Our answers in war and in peace, famine and prosperity, in plagues or good health, in good times and bad times, in small things and in great things, through the whole range of human affairs, are the essential threads of a much larger story. We are all told and desire peace and prosperity. And that to get there, we must find common ground upon which to build a better society. Our nation was founded as a republic made up of two constitutional systems, a federal and a state. This constitutional system mandates that governments be split into three branches. The tension between these branches is required. It is in the friction that it creates that is supposed to keep them together. Just as tension cables on great bridges bear the weight of the structure, making them sound and sturdy. And while the other two branches pull strongly one way or the other, the courts must instead pull towards the center towards the Constitution. Our nation's courts serve as the arbiters for the public, whether between private litigants or a citizen and his government. They serve the unique role of an unbiased adjudicator in a broad range of circumstances. However, regardless of the circumstances, our judges and justices are called to apply the law fairly. To quote Justice Amy Coney Barrett, I believe Americans of all backgrounds deserve an independent Supreme Court that interprets our Constitution and our laws as they are written. This holds true for the highest court in a nation and for the highest court in our state. When judges impose their beliefs instead of upholding the law, which the citizenry better understands than we think, it is only a matter of time before the citizenry shows the same disrespect for law and order. If there is a common thread that is supposed to bind the government to its citizens, it is the law. Both our state and federal constitutions spell out the fundamental rights that are granted to us by God, not by governments. The danger, the true destruction, is when those elected to enforce and uphold the law use that power to bend the governed to their will, breaking the law and usurping the Constitution, thereby depriving all of liberty. In Louisiana, this duty falls on these seven justices, charged with balancing the whole of Louisiana. Make no mistake, this is a balancing act, not a deadlift. But with one wrong move, it becomes a deadlift. A justice's wisdom is crucial in balancing the immense body of law, and it's most effective when guided by an experienced, dedicated chief. This is no easy feat, especially at the highest level of scrutiny. Litigants appearing before this court rarely bring an issue with a simple answer, but all deserve the full benefit of the court's discernment. As noted by the famous Supreme Court Justice Harlan, our Constitution is colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. In respect of civil rights, all citizens are equal before the law. However, equal does not mean extra. A chief's work is not just in keeping justice for all, but in the upkeep of the justice system for all. Service to the people is the entire purpose here. What may seem to some as pomp and circumstances is inherently sacred and fundamental. As the governor said, what a beautiful building we have. It lays the foundation for the people's defense against tyranny and injury. And we all know well the famous quote by John Adams that we must be a nation of laws and not of men. But lesser known is his warning on the same topic. There is a danger from all men, he says. The only maximum of a free government ought to be to trust no man living with the power to endanger the public liberty. That skepticism is another force, another tension acting on our government. It is a force of the people and a right to question those in power. And it is in this court that it is called to find justice. The search for justice is not a lonesome endeavor. It demands the work of many, but is led by one. As the new Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court, Justice John Weimer takes that lead. And I am confident that he will serve our state honorably, and our court is in good hands. Thank you, and God bless Louisiana.
I started thinking about the times when I was able to meet a Chief Justice. And so prior to Chief Justice Weimer, that would be twice. The first time was when I met Chief Justice Pascal Calagero. In October 2004, I believe it was at the New Orleans Civic Center at the time when I was sworn in, and I took my oath as an attorney. And so Chief Justice Calagaro, at the end, he spoke to a lot of us that wanted to hang around and just kind of talk to him. He was very nice and kind, and at that time, that was my first time meeting a justice. And he was so kind, and I was very surprised by that, because we always think of the justices as someone who are on this pedestal and who just, you know, they do, at times, we think just interpret the laws, and then we're not sure about what we're asking, what we're doing, if we're doing the right thing, or if it's okay for us to seek their guidance. But they're human, just like all of us. And so that day, Justice Calagaro took a picture with me, and I was wearing this suit jacket. I was also wearing the skirt, but I did not try to put that on today, because that was 2004, and we're here to talk about a joyous occasion and things that bring us joy. So we're not even going to mention that. And so the next Chief Justice that I was able to meet was Chief Justice Burnett Johnson. And then a few years later, I was able to work with her. Chief Justice Johnson opened up this very courtroom to me so I could be sworn in as the 80th bar president. I will always thank her for that, and I will always remember that. And I appreciate her and her service. And so now we're here to celebrate Chief Justice Weimer. Although I kind of was told I'm not supposed to say that, but we'll see. So also during our conversation, we discussed access to justice. And Justice Weimer wants us to continue that work that we're doing to ensure that all citizens have access to the courts. That way they can have access to justice and whatever that justice looks like for them. Because at the time, we don't know what it looks like, but they have to have access to the courts in order to do that. And that is what he is working on along with his associate justices. And the Louisiana State Bar Association is helping him with that. And so we have, of course, the LSBA's Access to Justice Department, but along with that, we have our Access to Justice Commission, which the Supreme Court plays a very integral role in, and always has a member that sits at our side that co-chairs that commission, which is very powerful, because we have many stakeholders that sit in that commission, and when you see the court there with you, alongside you, fighting for the citizens of Louisiana, that's an impact that you have no idea what that looks like to people that are in legal services, that are working day in and day out. We also have the Louisiana Bar Foundation, who plays an integral role in our access to justice in everything that we do, and who Justice Weimer also supports, and that supports the court. And so through that Bar Foundation, they're normally the highest funder of civil legal aid in the state of Louisiana. That's so very important and very powerful, because without the work of our legal aid organizations, there would be so many people who would not have access to the courts and access to the justice that they seek. And so I would also like to say, since I have in front of me here today, I have members of the executive branch of government and the legislature. And so I thank you for also funding and believing in civil legal aid. Without that, we couldn't do the things that we do to assist our citizens of Louisiana, especially right now during this pandemic, which is so important. And although I was able to work with Justice Johnson going throughout the end of her tenure, of course, she had to deal with the pandemic. And now Justice Weimer at the beginning of his tenure as Chief Justice, and on my way out as bar president, and we're still dealing with the pandemic. And so there are different issues that are arising for each justice, but I know that Justice Weimer is going to handle that very well. So I drove in last night from Alexandria, because that's about a 3-hour drive, and I didn't want to do it this morning because you never know about that Baton Rouge traffic. It's kind of tricky, and I didn't want to be late. So I was supposed to be getting my things together, but I received a text from a friend that said, "Had you seen the news?" And I was like, "No, why?" I turn it on, and I see some things that I never thought that I would see. Some things that upset me, that did not bring me joy. But then I started to think, and I thought about it, and I was like, you know, we're going here today to celebrate the investiture of Chief Justice Weimer. Who's going to be there? I thought about it. And as the Attorney General mentioned, those 3 branches of government, they're here represented today: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. It's not often that you always see them in the same room. You do see it in a civics book. You see a nice little diagram of kind of how it works, but you never really see it function in real life. And the reason that we're all here today and that everyone is here represented is because of Chief Justice Weimer and his respect for the rule of law. And that is what he is going to keep instilling in everyone, that understanding of the rule of law and how important it is. As lawyers, part of our oath was to uphold the laws of the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of Louisiana. And that is what we are doing here today. We are upholding those laws, those very important laws. And so Justice Weimer also has instilled the mission of the Louisiana State Bar Association. At its very core, it's serving the public and serving the profession. Whether that's through his tenure at Nichols, whether it's through serving in the lower courts, or serving as a Thibodeau Fire Department, he served the public. He thinks about the public with everything that he does and every decision that he makes. And he also serves the profession. As the Louisiana State Bar Association president, we work very closely with the court. I've heard my predecessors say that there are others around in their different jurisdictions that don't have a working relationship with their court. And I found that very odd. And so when I took office, I haven't been able to really get out and meet most of my colleagues in the different states because of the pandemic. But I will say there are a few that are shocked by that, which kind of surprises me because we're very fortunate that our court recognizes that at the end of the day, we're all lawyers and we're all here to serve the public. And that is what they're doing here today through their public service. We have a wonderful relationship with them, and I look forward to continuing that, and I know that I will because we've had that discussion. And so with that, although I'm not supposed to say that he is the best person suited for the job right now, that the position of the Chief Justice is a lot of things. I had no idea until, working with Chief Justice Johnson, all the different administrative functions that go with that as well. I'm not going to say that he's going to be very well suited for that he also may streamline some processes. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that I look forward to it. I know he's going to do an amazing job. I'm not going to say any of that. But what I will say is, I am honored to be here today. It is my privilege that I get to work with you, and I wish you and your family well. Thank you.
Madam President. Thank you.
That Justice Weimer and I met when I was first a member of the House Appropriations Committee years ago. And as an associate justice, he would make his way to the legislature to meet with individual legislators on the Appropriations Committee for the purpose of talking about funding for the judicial branch. And so we got to know each other a little bit, and we had some similarities. But subsequent to that, as I moved over to the Senate, and many of you are aware of this, he can be seen annually in the spring donning the Senate basketball uniform in the annual House Senate basketball. What a swingman for the Senate, and he has brought us a few trophies along the way. So thank you for that, and the charity that it helped, the charities that it helps. But we soon learned as we met each other that he had friends from Lafayette area, and I told him that my father grew up in Lafourche Parish. Turns out both he and my father are graduates from Thibodeau High. Although not classmates, they did graduate from the same school. I think my father's school was changed. You probably were from the newer school. My father was the old school. But we created a little bit of a kinship and friendship with the love for civics, and that has grown. And so I thank you for that, Justice Weimer. But today, we're gathered to mark the beginning of your tenure as the 26th Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court. And I want you to know that I did my research on that, and after a few hours found out that it was right there on your website. And so I could have just cut to the quick and done that. I want to thank your staff and the communication that I received, much like the Attorney General and the Governor. We all received the communication. It was not missed by me that keep your comments brief was in all caps. And so I will not be here long, but thank you for that. It was with wisdom and foresight that the drafters of our state constitution decided that the leadership of the Supreme Court transfer to the justice who is senior in the point of service on the court, thereby ensuring the efficient and effective continuity of the work of the court. And I commend those drafters. It removes a lot of what we have to go through in the legislature with regards to presiding officers and the politics that sometimes plays into that. It's important for the functioning of our democracy that these three distinct branches of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch, work in concert for the citizens of our state so that we can provide a government that works through issues and serves the people. And there have been a number of people who have alluded to that, and that's extremely important for me. I know that I try every day to have a good working relationship with the Speaker of the House, with the administration, and with the executive branch agency heads. Your branch of state government, in particular your court, has the important role of interpreting our state laws and our state constitution. It's one of the pillars of the division of power between the branches and how your branch provides the necessary checks and balances on the powers of the other branches. Now, sometimes, as it has been known to happen, the legislature and the executive branch don't agree on the constitutionality of a law or a statute. And we thank you, the judicial branch, for being that grand referee in those disputes. The role is paramount to allowing the other two branches to get back to their work and keep the state moving forward. As for the legislature, this past year has presented numerous challenges. They've required innovative approaches, literally just to conduct the basic constitutionally required functions of the legislature. Of course, in addition to that, our constituents bring to us policy issues that we have to debate as a deliberative body and move those matters forward. Many of these challenges continued. I'm sure you and your court and your associate justices are continuing to navigate through the same challenges that we've had. The impartial administration of justice by the Louisiana Supreme Court is instrumental to our state progressing forward, and strong leadership will continue to be necessary for the court to meet its challenges and accomplish its goals and objectives. As we begin 2021, I'm optimistic that we will soon put this pandemic in the rearview mirror and get back to more normal lives. With that, I'm also pretty sure that the Nichols State University family is quite proud today that one of their own is the Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court. I look forward to working with you as the leader of our state's judicial branch, as well as to the associate justices and all of the members of the judicial branch as a member and the presiding officer of the Senate, as a member of the legislature, to move our great state forward. Congratulations to you and best wishes to you and your family on your new position. And thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
It occurred to me that we are entering the most difficult time in our history in this state for this court since probably Reconstruction. And I say that because it's clear to me now that our very institutions are under attack. How does this court do its duty when the very notion of a fact, is under attack? The rise of social media has politicized the court system. The public looks to the court as an arbiter of politics, not justice and law. Both sides now see the court as a super legislature, or even worse, as a means of publicity. People and politicians use the court not to resolve honest disputes between branches of government, but as a currency to boost their own political fortunes. We saw the seeds of this ambitious flower bouquet turn into a bouquet of dead flowers yesterday. So the mission you've chosen to accept is maintaining the integrity of this court, to restoring the public's faith in nonpartisan justice. Now, I see Bishop Fobb in the audience, and he is my bishop as well. And it's confession time. I lied. I never had any intention of not saying anything nice about Justice Weimer. It is Justice Weimer's fault for trusting a politician. Because Justice Weimer is the best man for this moment in time. I'm confident your humility, your pragmatism, and most importantly, your courage will steer this ship through the troubled waters to safer harbors, which is the best compliment I could give any incoming Chief Justice. With that, I thank you for the opportunity and best of luck.
Would you please repeat after me? I, John L. Weimer,
I, John L. Weimer,
do solemnly swear that I will support,
that I solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Louisiana,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Louisiana,
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all duties
discharge and perform all duties
incumbent upon me
incumbent upon me
as Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court,
as Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court,
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, John. Penny. Thank you.
Upon taking the oath of office, I feel a profound sense of humility and a recognition of the obligation to be of service. Apparently, my brothers in the fire department have heard the news. Don't be alarmed. For the benefit of the audience, some fire truck sirens just began to wail. I want to thank the participants, Bishop Fobb, for your spiritual and thoughtful eloquence. You have been an inspiration to me. Governor Edwards, Attorney General Landry, it is good to have two attorneys in the courtroom without their briefs. And of course, I'm referring to legal briefs and not articles of attire. Sheriff Gregg and Sheriff Trigg and Sheriff Pullman, thank you for being here. Brother Fireman Riviere, brother-in-law Danny Cavell, Chef Jeremy, fellow public servants from the legislature, Madam President, and cousin MC Deacon Dan Bourne, and my former student who taught me much, Reverend Dr. Charles Otis, will share the benediction. I begin with a quick story. Following the terrible and tragic times immediately after Hurricane Katrina, displaced people of New Orleans were being evacuated by the busload and without notice, literally dropped off at Nicholls State University, located in Thibodeau. As many as 12,000 people would spend at least some time on the campus. Nicholls and Thibodeau and the surrounding communities immediately and without hesitation opened their hearts, opened their doors, opened their clothes closets, and opened their freezers, which of course were without electricity, and housed and clothed and fed their new neighbors coubillons and sauce piquants and étouffées and jambalayas and fricassees and gumbos, all containing all manner of God's creatures from the bountiful marshes, swamps, bayous, and estuaries of South Louisiana. Daily, food began arriving from as far away as Edgard and Vacherie, Pierrepont and Cocodrie, Amelia and Bouty, and South and Central Lafourche. Church congregations of every denomination responded with prayers and services. When the Red Cross finally arrived, weeks later, and served the first meals, everyone hoped they'd learn to cook better. I have never been so proud of my alma mater, my hometown, and the areas I have served as a judge for the way they responded to those in need who were taken from the city and brought to the country with little more than the clothes on their backs. Those efforts have been an inspiration to me to be of service. Also there, day and night, were my innovative, creative, can-do brothers and sisters of the Thibodeau Volunteer Fire Department, reputed to be the world's largest all-volunteer fire department, to serve their new neighbors. Now, I discovered that citizens from two parishes I served, St. Bernard, Sheriff Pullman, and Plaquemines were being rescued from their rooftops or wherever they could be found and taken to the levee in Algiers across the Mississippi River from this courthouse to be further evacuated. A group of fellow volunteer firemen and other good citizens, including my brother-in-law, Danny Cavell, were able to put together some food and water, and we went to Algiers to be of service. And we were stopped at a roadblock manned by some very young and very well-armed National Guardsmen. And I showed them my credentials as an Associate Justice to gain entrance and complete our mission. And I could tell they were perplexed when I handed them my ID. And so I explained, I am Justice John Weimer. And one guardsman looked up and said, Justin who? And I explained, I'm not Justin. I'm a justice, a judge on the Louisiana Supreme Court. And these guardsmen went immediately from perplexed to baffled. Then one of them pointed at a Thibodeau volunteer fireman's t-shirt I was wearing and said, hey bro, are you a fireman? Come on in. I don't know nothing about these IDs, but if you're a fireman, you can come through. I can tell them now that not only am I a fireman, but I'm also the chief, without fibbing. And although in Thibodeau, my brother firemen have advised me not to refer to myself as chief because that'd be rather confusing, I can be chief all I want in New Orleans. The point of that story is that the title we hold as judges or public officials does not necessarily define us. In some instances, it is meaningless. It is the dedication, diligence, and hard work that define our role. Respect must be earned. I have served with 3 Chief Justices who made their mark on the judiciary in special ways. Pascal Calogero, the longest-serving justice for whom this building is named. Catherine Kitty Kimball, the first female Chief Justice, and Burnett Joshua Johnson, the first African-American Chief Justice. Now, I will be the first to recognize that I am not special like the chiefs who preceded me, but to demonstrate the constant ebb and flow of life, all 3 former Chief Justices are directly responsible for me being here today, because all 3 voted to allow me to serve as an appointed district judge 27 years ago. I have learned much from each, and while I will not match their historic firsts that they achieved, I promise to work hard and be dedicated to the principles of impartiality, independence, and fairness while pursuing justice and acting with integrity, just as did my predecessors. I'm joined by my colleagues, whom I will introduce by way of seniority and hometown, as opposed from left to right or right to left, because as the justices face the audience, their left is your right and your right is their left. And aren't right and left a matter of perspective? If you are reflective, and I know many of you are, perhaps you can possibly ascertain some symbolism. Note that I'll now sit in the middle from everyone's perspective, a place where I'm very comfortable. Justice Jeff Hughes of Walker and Justice Scott Creighton of Webster Parish are with us today virtually. Justice James Genovese of Opelousas, Justice Will Crane of Madisonville, Justice Jay McCallum of Farmerville, and Justice Piper Griffin of New Orleans. Thus, the Supreme Court begins with 1 new justice, 2 brand new justices, and a new chief. I look forward to us learning together. I must recognize my family, and I beg your indulgence. My wife, Penny, who was kind enough to marry me and is responsible for raising our 3 daughters, Jacqueline and Catherine and Emily, who, thank God, Bishop, not only inherited their mother's beauty, but her brains also. My prayer for everyone is that their family be as much of a blessing to them as my family has been to me. These 4 women in my life have made me a better person because they are individually and collectively such good people. They are remarkably self-sufficient, self-reliant, and they can take care of themselves. My 2 son-in-laws, Jacob Daig, who is married to Catherine, Eric Sanchez, who is married to my daughter, Jacqueline, and Hogan Bourgeois, who is Emily's boyfriend. I also recognize my brother Mike, my unfortunately last surviving sibling, and my cousin Mark and Penny's brothers and sisters and their spouses, who have been like brothers and sisters to me, Brother Cavell. I must also introduce my immediate work family: Stephanie Garrison, Gail Wise, Raul Esquivel, Gaynell Guillot, Kelly Barbier, and Nicole Bell. They are bright, dedicated, competent public servants who are fiscally frugal. I was named for my father and my grandfather, men of immensely modest means. My grandfather was a produce man at a grocery store who probably never made over minimum wage. These occasionally impecunious men left me something more valuable than riches. They left me a good name. My father was called upon to raise 5 children ranging in age from 9 to 3 on his own when his wife, his children's mother, tragically passed away. Thankfully, family members, teachers, and members of the Thibodeau community looked out for us. My father was a World War II veteran, an automobile mechanic, an entrepreneur who owned and operated a service station from which he eventually sold motorcycles. My mother had to quit school in the 7th grade to help raise her younger siblings and ended up with a GED at 29 while expecting her first child. After my mother's death, my father moved his service station to a location closer to the modest 2-bedroom, 1-bath duplex where the 7 of us had lived. You really get to know your family well in such an environment, all too well. My father worked hard, was impeccably honest, a competent mechanic, and treated everyone fairly and only charged for services actually rendered. I grew up working in that service station. I learned invaluable life lessons working in that service station that have served and guided me throughout my various career paths. I learned the value of hard work, the virtue of honesty, and how vitally important it is to treat everyone, regardless of their station in life, with dignity and respect. I also learned how very gratifying it is to be of service to others. At that time, I also met a then young attorney who was always well-dressed and always smiling, who had his vehicle serviced at my father's station. I listened to his conversations with my father and was always too bashful to even contribute so much as a syllable. When I took the oath to serve on our state's highest court 19 years ago, that young attorney, by then appellate court judge Randolph Payro of Thibodeau, told a story, and I'd hoped to have him here today. He could not join us in person, so I will tell his story in his absence. He said he went to pick up his vehicle, which was being serviced at Weimer's Auto Service, and he relayed this tall, skinny, long-haired, filthy, grimy, greasy kid crawled out from underneath my car. He told me about the services he rendered and then bashfully asked, "How does one go about becoming an attorney?" And Randy Payro said, "I looked at this guy and said to myself, he's got to be kidding. Here is a guy who will need an attorney. He is never, ever going to be an attorney." that was painful to hear. It's equally painful to report. Randy recounted now, a decade later, that he and Gerald Block, Matthew's father, mentioned earlier, hired me to work in their hometown law firm, and how roughly a decade after that, Randy recommended me to Justice Harriet Lemon, then on the Louisiana Supreme Court, who eventually I would not replace but succeed on the court, that I, a full-time faculty member at Nichols teaching law and ethics, be appointed to serve as a district judge when Randy was elected to the Court of Appeal. But for that appointment, I would have never considered becoming a judge. I assure you I did not relate these matters to talk about myself. I share these matters because throughout my native Lafourche parish, this ceremony is being shared with fellow public school students to teach civics, speech, and mass communications. I pray this ceremony is educational. I use these matters to point out that in this wonderful country in which we live, in this great state we call home, although neither are perfect, they provide hope where, regardless of one's background, hard work and dedication, perseverance, tenacity, time on task, and respect for others will enable one to succeed if one is willing to be of service to others. We must work together to ensure that opportunity is equally available to all, and all can hope to achieve their goals. Today, we live in challenging and inflective times of social distancing and social unrest. However, we are social beings who need one another. We face a worldwide pandemic, and challenging conflicts face our nation. And in Louisiana, we have also stared down countless hurricanes. Yet I am confident in the citizens of our nation and the citizens of Louisiana in particular, that they have the perseverance, tenacity, resilience, and respect for one another to overcome these challenges. Our great nation was founded on a principle of human rights. It is stated in the Declaration of Independence that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I have come to learn as a father of 3 independent daughters that the reference to men is a reference to mankind. This principle sets a high moral standard to which we should all aspire. We must strive to ensure that these principles stated in the Declaration of Independence does apply to everyone equally, and that everyone assume personal responsibility to become good citizens. To sit in judgment is truly a formidable responsibility and a solemn duty. Judges are called upon to make decisions that would often defy the wisdom of the biblical king, Solomon. Daily, judges decide the fate of others while addressing issues related to life, liberty, and property because that is their sworn duty. Competing considerations must be weighed carefully and balanced on the scales of justice. Daily, and often many times in a day, judges are called upon to separate fact from fiction, truth from untruth. Judges are called upon to address issues related to those who perceive that they have been wronged or have been wronged, committed a wrong, or are accused of wrongful behavior, and after listening carefully and patiently, make it right based on the law. My belief is that judges do not declare winners or losers in litigation, but rather apply the law to the facts to reach a solution. When impartiality prevails, it is society that prevails because a disagreement has been resolved. Our system of justice must rely on others to enforce judicial decrees, but those decrees are only respected if the judiciary is worthy of that respect. As judges, we must conduct ourselves in a manner to be worthy of respect and remain independent, fair, unbiased, for our system of justice to properly serve society. I firmly believe that a judge is a public servant who serves by being dedicated to the principles of justice, fairness, independence, and impartiality while applying the law as written by the legislature. A judge cannot be an advocate for one side or the other, but rather must be an advocate for justice under the law. An important function of our judiciary is to provide a forum for the resolution of disagreements where all who appear can be confident that there is a fair hearing and an impartial decision. Judges have a unique opportunity to educate the community about the law and our legal system. And I urge my colleagues on the bench to take advantage of opportunities to teach, especially to teach our young people about respect for the law, personal responsibility, and consequences of inappropriate behavior. Mr. President, you touched on that. We are both teachers. We love the profession, and we love the way that we have the opportunity to touch young people's lives and for them reciprocally to have them touch our lives. My first act as Chief Justice was to encourage judges to become active teachers in the community. In addition to the adjudicative function, the Supreme Court administers numerous programs, and I can speak at length about each, but out of respect for everyone's time, I will mention only a few briefly. Specialty courts, which include drug and treatment courts, DWI courts, veterans courts, family courts, and reentry courts, provide rehabilitation as opposed to incarceration and reduce recidivism while saving souls and our state money because it is less expensive to rehabilitate than it is to incarcerate. Mr. Attorney General, we have been in touch with one another to bolster these programs. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, and members of the legislature, I appreciate the work that y'all have done to help support these programs. Judges have envisioned, created, and presided over these courts with no additional pay because they want to serve by helping people become productive citizens. The court also administers the Court-Appointed Special Advocates, or CASA program, which involves ordinary citizens serving as volunteers who have been specifically trained to assist those who are among the most vulnerable of society, abused and neglected children who through no fault of their own are involved in the legal system. These people are true children of God who serve the underprivileged, and I can't thank them enough for their efforts. Additionally, the Supreme Court administers the Families in Need of Services program, which aids families needing social services so as to prevent more significant issues. The court also maintains the Louisiana Protective Order Registry, which provides 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week access to court rulings so as to help protect those subjected to domestic violence, and the sheriffs in the audience know how important that is. Each of these programs have been supported by our colleagues in the legislature and in the executive branch, and the judiciary needs their continued financial investment in these programs so as to save the state funds and other areas of the budget and provide valuable service to our citizens. The Supreme Court has long enjoyed an excellent relationship with the Louisiana State Bar Association, which relationship, as indicated by the President, is envied in other parts of the country. The state bar and local bar associations oversee countless hours of good works, including pro bono work in which volunteers attorneys assist those in need of legal services without compensation. Madam President, thank you for your exuberance. Thank you for the work that you do. I look forward to us continuing to work together. The Louisiana Bar Foundation, as the President indicated, provides substantial funds to many worthy organizations and aids the indigent in receiving legal services. My colleagues and I are immensely proud of the dedication of so many attorneys and judges who give back so very much of their time, talent, and treasure to the community and to the bench and the bar. I sincerely thank everyone who is here to share this occasion. There are many others who could not join us physically, but undoubtedly are here in spirit, and today virtually as well. A dear friend of mine who's a physician sent out a letter to some friends advising them that if they had any type of sleep deprivation issues, to tune into this program and they would be cured. I pray that has not been the case. I also thank the many people who have played a significant role in my life and career, which has advanced by fate and circumstances far beyond my ability to comprehend. The list of people is endless, and to begin naming names would be an impossible task. So many have done so much, and in that respect, I am truly blessed and extremely grateful. The sacrifices of so many on my behalf inspire me to serve diligently. I want to thank the previously mentioned copious number of family members and the many friends and classmates and former students who have been so supportive and who are randomly but strategically dispersed throughout the district I serve in the parishes of St. Bernard, Plaquemines, the West Bank of Jefferson, St. Charles, St. John, St. James, Lafourche, Terrebonne, Assumption, St. Mary, and St. Martin. According to Scripture, God offered Solomon anything he wished, and Solomon did not ask for riches, and he did not ask for a long life. Instead, Solomon requested from God the following: give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people and to distinguish right from wrong. In closing, I ask one favor. I ask for your prayers that my decisions and the decisions of my judicial colleagues will be just, wise, fair, and that we will have an understanding heart that we are good servants as we toil in the vineyards of justice. God bless our state, and God bless our country. Thank you very much.